lot of stuff I'm going to teach about lead guitar and melody theory and just all kinds of stuff in this series. But there's one particular thing I like to start out with, which pretty much brings everything together. All the basics that you need to know to really be a good melodic player can all be encapsulated in this one really great introductory exercise. And I mean, I guess I call it the DADGAD mode lesson. Maybe there's a better name for it, but it's suggested in the comments. Maybe I'll change the name of this video. Who knows? But this lesson is a really cool trick that I found to teach everything from intervals, mode theory, phrasing, understanding chord tones, all this stuff, all in one fairly easy package. So I'm going to explain some stuff, but I won't talk in the most length that I probably could about a lot of these topics. But this exercise, and it's a jam. Really, it's kind of more of a jam than anything. This should help you understand everything you need to know about the theory of melody that will let you branch out into all these more advanced exercises. So I would say get your guitar into DADGAD tuning first. So it's D, E goes down to a D, keep the A there, and a D, leave your G where it is. Your B goes down to A, and your E goes down to D. So D, A, D, G, A, D. If you want an extra drone device of some kind, or like some other drone playing in the background, that can be nice too, but it's not necessary. You'll just kind of like, every now and then just kind of like, meander over your drone strings, because we're going to play almost everything on our first string, what used to be the E string. This is kind of a little bit how a citata is played, so, this is a little bit of a citata style lesson. You can think of it however you want. The stuff we're going to learn is true of literally every style of music that has melodies in it. But we're going to come from a little bit of a citata approach because I think it's helpful to learning. So let's zoom in on the guitar and see what's going on. The first thing we're going to learn about is kind of the unity of intervals and scales. So a lot of what we talk about in this type of music is mode theory. And modes, how they have these different sounds, but what is it that makes them have these different sounds, and what does that all mean? Well, there's a couple of perspectives. There's two main perspectives you approach modes from, but the intervals are the one that tell you the most about how they feel. So, we're going to kind of like start plunking our drone away here. And we're going to start to build a 7-note scale. For now, just kind of go with me on this. I think you'll understand a lot about the theory stuff I'm saying after we've built a few things. So we've got our open note here. It's our Do. It's our first resting note. It's an open string. Our first note's going to be the major second, which is there on the 2nd fret. You can find a way to give it a little vibrato, that's nice, but otherwise just kind of let it ring. And listen to its quality. Ask yourself, what does this sound like? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it wistful? You can give it a personality, is this like your little sister? Or is this like, your cranky teacher from 2nd grade? Whatever. So you can describe it like a person. And just play with it a little bit with your Do. However you do that. Come back to Do, it's where you rest. Then, our next note is going to be our 3rd, and we're going to do the major 3rd, which is on the 4th fret. So what does that sound like? Try to phrase with it a little bit, You can use things like vibrato or tremolo picking to extend it a little bit. You want to try to integrate it with the other notes you've done so far. And let the other notes bring out its qualities. And rest here. I suppose that's how you vibrato the root as you get up here above the nut. And there's a little trick for you. Whoever said you couldn't vibrato on open strings. Anyway, so the next note is our 4th. And we're going to use the perfect 4th at first, which is on the 5th fret. So listen to it a little bit and ask yourself what its personality is like. Is this like a prince who never gets what he wants? Is this like your grandma looking out over, a field in her mountainside retirement home? What's it like? And integrate it. And I should say, some of these notes are notes to rest on, and some of them are notes that push or create tension. At least in the drone context, your 3rd here Mi is going to be a resting note, and your Do is going to be a resting note, and your second and your fourth are going to be non-resting notes. So at this point, we can start to make a phrase a little bit. So let's say we play a bunch of random notes. We end on a non-resting note that makes us want to go somewhere. So we lean into that and then play some more notes. And we rest. So let's add another, do another phrase. Ending on a non-resting note, building some tension, and releasing. And ending on this resting note, and the tension releases. And this is a lot of like feeling the motions between those two things. Is a lot of how you get good vibes, how you get good feelings from melodic music. So really listen to tension and release and how these notes create that as we go. Alright, so we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 notes. We have Do, Re, Mi, Fa, first, second, third, fourth. Up to the 7th fret, that's our perfect 5th. So ask yourself what the perfect 5th sounds like. Try to make a picture for it in your mind, or describe it as an emotion or a person. Take a second to listen to it, describe it your own way. If you don't come up with anything right away, that's fine. Just realize that at some point something probably will come up for you. And then integrate it. You definitely want to pause the video every so often and play with these things yourself so you get a solid sense of them. So after your 5th here, I'm going to go up to our 9th fret. That's our major 6th, our 6th note. Ask yourself what it sounds like. Person, place, thing, emotion, whatever you feel like. And extend it with vibrato or with tremolo picking. Resting on that 5th. The 5th is a resting note. The 6th is an active note. Only got a few more notes to go. Up to our 11th fret, that's our major 7th. This is an interesting one, so take a little bit of time to try to figure out how does that feel to you? What's the personality of the major 7th? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it an animal? Is it someone who's gender neutral? Is it the moon? What is it? I generally don't think of this as a resting note. I think of this as a pretty active note. So at this point, we have a resting note on Do, an active note on Mi, or on Re, a resting note on Mi, an active note on Fa, a resting note on So, and La and Ti, our 6th and 7th, are active notes. So think about that a little bit, that your tonic triad, Do, Mi, So, Mi, Do. Even if you're in minor, you know, even in minor, those are generally your resting notes and your other notes are generally your active notes. Because they're not in kind of the resonant harmonic series of the tonic note. So that makes them a little tenser. Not bad, but more tense. And then finally at the 12th fret we get our octave, which is obviously our first note, an octave higher, which is a resting note. So play with the whole thing a bit and see how well you hang on to all those notes. Try to play with things with vibrato and the pacing and waiting for things. But try not to rush or give it any sense of pulse yet, because it lets you just listen to the balance of the notes. See, I could play just this forever. I'd never get bored of this. There's so many ways you can bring out the relationships of the different notes that really let you hear not just how the scale is constructed, but how the notes sound within it. And that's really important to bringing out the mood in music. So it's very worth it to spend a lot of time just messing with this. Now, what we've constructed there is a major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 7 notes in an octave. Now, most of the music that people play anywhere, it's not all music for sure, but the most common scale types are what are called modes of the major scale, which means they kind of have a similar interval structure to this. How we get to those different interval structures we'll get to later. But in this video, what we're going to talk about is how to take this scale from this reference point and turn it into the other modes, and how to make a jam out of that. Because we already got a good jam on the Ionian mode right there. So you can call it Ionian, you can call it major. But a really good way to understand the mood or the sound of the modes is to take that major scale as your reference point. Really get good at it. Play through it a bunch of different ways. Really get that feeling, but then change a note. So I took the 7th at 11th fret and I made it flat. So now I got the 10th fret instead of the 11th. Let's see how that makes it sound different. So that's called mixolydian. Happens to be the 5th mode of the major scale, but you could also think of it as a major scale with a flat 7, only one note different. Now let's take our major 7th and put it back where it was, back on our 11th fret again. But let's take our 4th degree, which is on the 5th fret, and raise it 1. So that's our sharp 4, our augmented 4. That's got a nice kind of exotic sound to it. It's a less common mode, but, I mean, just for the sake of argument, realizing you can definitely raise that 4th. There's space for it to do it. So play with that, see what you get. Alright, so let's start to go the other way. So the major scale is kind of in the middle of well, it's close to the, it's close to the sharper end of the spectrum. Kind of on the sharpest end, we have Lydian, which is like the major, but it's got the sharp 4. That's as sharp as these modes are going to get for today. But if you move the 4th back, still get back our 4th, and you make the 7th flat, that's our mixolydian. That is our next flat, one mode flatter, let's say. It's a very specific order these go in to kind of stay in the major mode spectrum. You can eventually play with these any way you want, but just for today, let's just try to stick to a certain order. So we go Lydian, down to Ionian or major, down to mixolydian, and then next thing we're going to lower is the 3rd. So we had our major 3rd this whole time. Let's make it minor. So lower it 1 fret. Oh, there we go. It's darker now. But notice we still have this natural 6 here. So this is called Dorian. It's a slightly less common sound, but still shows up a lot. A lot of songs use Dorian. Every Santana song ever, pretty much. Chant uses this a lot too. There's a lot of styles that use this. So again, the interesting thing about the Dorian scale is it's a minor scale. It's got the minor third, but it's got the natural sixth. So it's kind of halfway between minor and major. This is kind of right in the middle of our spectrum right here. And the next thing we're going to flat is our sixth. So ask yourself, how's that sound to you? So that's our Aeolian scale, or our natural minor scale. So you can work on some, some Spanish melodies with that, or some, anything that uses minor. Minor is an incredibly common scale. Aeolian's very, very common. So I'm sure you're hearing all kinds of things that you dig in that. And try to mess with it, get used to that position. You got natural 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6. It's the keynote for minor right there. Flat 7, and then 1. So really nail that one down. See if you got a sense of it, and see how well you can hold on to it. And we got 2 more scales to go. One of them's a little weird, but next one we're going to do is we got to take our 2. We're going to make it flat. So that's what's called our Phrygian scale. And, this scale doesn't occur by itself a lot. Usually it's mixed in with some other things. Like there's, flamenco uses this scale a lot, but it tends to be what they call Phrygian dominant. We have a major third, but a flat 2. That's very common in flamenco. Natural Phrygian, not a super common scale. There's some African songs I've been working on recently that use it in a pure form. You get it in Indian classical music, but usually Phrygian is more like twisted in on top of other scales that are already there. And then the last mode we're going to do, and this is the really weird one. Check out my video later, the Locrian Challenge. Anyone who finds a cool way to use this scale wins cool points. Because a lot of people say this is the scale of the blues. It kind of is. It sort of is, sort of not, but it's like this scale occurring in its totally natural form. And actually, if you be careful, I can't play my 5th anymore because this scale, you flat the 5. So I can only use my open drones now. So you actually kind of have to use the 4th as a stable note in this one because this 5th, all the modes so far had a perfect 5th in them. And this is an incredible stabilizing force on a mode. This perfect 5th interval is so important in stabilizing a mode. As soon as you start to play with it, you start to realize, oh man, with a drawn context you can kind of do it. But in this Locrian mode is very rare in music of any kind, or except as like sort of a passing melody, because it's so unstable because it doesn't have that natural 5th in it. Now, of course, I came up with some tricks to play with this that I really, really like, but I'd like to see, check out my Locrian Challenge video if you want to see a good creative challenge. Try to find a cool way to use the Locrian scale. But, so you've gone through all these things. Now, in my next video on mode theory, I'll explain where these all come from and how you figure it out, but if you really just want to understand why music sounds the way it does, or why a mode sounds the way it does. I mean, that's it right there. You can really see it very plainly going up and down here. So my next challenge for you is to see if you can play these all in a jam and do a lap up and down the mode spectrum. So start with Lydian. See if you remember what Lydian is real quick. Go check yourself. Then I'm going to play Lydian. Here we go. Major scale with that sharp 4. It's got 6 to 7. So I'd challenge you to do is jam on Lydian a little bit. Excuse me. And then go to the next mode. Remember what the next one is? 3, 2, 1, it's major. Natural 4. And at this point, really think about your phrasing. How do you use the tension and release? How do you use different techniques to give it a good sound? Because making good music is all about balancing elements. Balancing the pacing, balancing the phrasing, balancing the notes, all these things. So now's a really good time to just get a sense of basic musicality. You know, playing some notes, letting it breathe. Letting it breathe. Letting it breathe. And resting. All right, so we got the Ionian there. What's next? 3, 2, 1. Mixolydian, flat 7. That one. Next after that, what do we flat? We flat something else. We flat the 3. We get Dorian. Alright, after that, take your guess. What's next is flat 6. We get the minor scale. There we go. So at that point, we are gonna head to our next scale, which, think about what you're flatting. Flatting 2, getting Phrygian. And then our last one is Locrian. We take out our 5th drones, we just hit our Ds. This is actually one you can skip if you're not really feeling it. I tend to do this as a 6-mode exercise rather than as a 7-note. But if you're curious, Locrian's there. And then it's seeing if you can go down that and back up it in one jam. It's a really good way to say, yeah, I've got a pretty good sense of how these modes work. And at that point, you know, you've learned about the intervals, you've learned about notes on your guitar, you've learned about phrasing techniques, how to resolve phrases with tension and release and use the tonic triad as your resting places. And you've learned the modes of your major scale. So again, this is a jam I like to do that kind of brings everything together. It's really fun, it's pretty easy, and it sounds pretty good, I dare say. And it's really easy to make mistakes, and it really doesn't matter, because pretty much everything harmonizes with this drone. So, anyway, share this with your friends if you dig it. Subscribe to the channel so you can keep with the series as it goes on, because as we do this, we're going to get so much more into mode stuff, and I'm going to try to give you fun things to play that will help you learn things at every stage. So, yeah, thanks for watching this far, and yeah, hope you've benefited from it. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.